Sit down, get cozy, grab a cup of tea. We are going to talk about psychology and writing, and why writing might benefit you. First things first, welcome to my channel. I'm Muri and this is my first video. I am so excited that you're watching it. This is a channel all about psychology, creativity, and the overall experience of life, I guess. And if that sounds like something you like, then follow along. Today we're talking about writing. Be it a complicated physics textbook, the Bible, or a Wattpad fanfiction, all writing has something in common. And that is first and foremost information. Information that was put down for people to read. Anthropologists argue that literacy itself changed how many cultures operate. That written language is a reason why we started categorizing, making lists, making recipes, making formulas, and ultimately making and recording experiments. And it became a crucial way of communicating. Written word changed our access to information, made us cross cultures and travel in time. And writing is uniquely human. A little fun fact, my aunt told me many years ago that she sees words written in front of her as she is saying them, whereas other people wouldn't see anything or maybe see more visually more images. And I think that's crazy because that means that if literacy didn't exist, then her way of thinking wouldn't exist. So I believe that the act of writing shaped our minds fundamentally. We write to send our knowledge out into the world, to preserve our lifetimes for future generations to read, and most importantly, we write to organize and express our thoughts and fantasies and memories. And that's what we're going to focus on. Walter J. Ong, a professor of English literature, historian, and philosopher, said, "Without writing, the literate mind would not and could not think as it does. Not only when engaged in writing, but normally, even when it is composing its thoughts in oral form. More than any other single invention, writing has transformed human consciousness." So, the question is, how can we use that to our advantage? Why can writing help us? And what is writing in psychology? Bibliotherapy. Bibliotherapy is the umbrella term of all usage of reading or writing as a therapeutic instrument. We are only going to focus on the writing part today. That can be any form of writing: autobiographical, expressive, classic poetry, writing with prompts, and many more. But the question is, why bibliotherapy? Why is writing therapeutic? What do you think? When you write, how do you feel? When I write, I often feel a sense of calmness. I'm writing because it is quiet, it is meditative, I don't know how to say that word. I write because it feels freeing. But what are the actual benefits of it? Number one, expression. Writing can help us express our thoughts and feelings, obviously. But what writing does, what other mediums might not do, is giving ourselves a safe outlet where you yourself can decide who can access it and who can't. You decide if it's meant for other people's eyes or just your own. You can even decide to not even read it yourself if you don't want to. I sometimes write my thoughts down whenever I would find myself ruminating, or when I have a weird unidentifiable feeling, or when I don't really know what I really want, I guess. And then afterwards I would either reread it and then underline the most important parts or the parts that really struck me, or sometimes after writing the last word I would just never look at it again. It really depends with what purpose you are writing. To me, writing lets me express things that I otherwise have a hard time verbalizing. It can help in recognizing and validating emotions and needs. It often brings subconscious thoughts and desires to the surface. But for that to work, you would have to give yourself the full freedom. Full expressive freedom. No censorship, no worrying if you are writing well or not. You really have to create a non-judgmental space for you to explore your inner world. Number two, organization. Thoughts can be scattered, can be tangled, can be unfinished, can be confusing. Writing can help us arrange scattered ideas into a coherent structure. It can make complex feelings less overwhelming, make it more manageable, breaking down our thought patterns and enhancing the understanding of ourselves. It reduces the mental clutter by focusing on what really needs attention. Because many times just thinking about something is not enough. when thoughts are all over the place, when we are going in circles, when we start ruminating, especially in episodes of high stress. I personally manage to think myself into a downward spiral every time, and writing can break that. So in contrast to just thinking, you can view writing as a very intense and precise form of thinking. We focus on our thoughts, on our feelings, our beliefs. We have to really fully develop and finish a thought before writing it down, before putting it down on paper. So organization is a very important effect of writing. Number 3, prioritization. Just like expressing and organizing our thoughts, writing can help us prioritize what is really important. Be it a bunch of thoughts where we need to identify the most pressing issue, or a project in which we have to set goals and determine the next steps. Prioritizing is something that many brains have trouble with without any help. And this is something that especially neurodivergent people will have problem with. We're all in this together. When one thought jumps over the other, and then you have the next association and the next thought, and oh, did I forget this? Did I forget that? Pretty sure I'm missing a deadline. And suddenly you are feeling hungry on top of all things. You just don't know where to start. There are great ways to use writing as a help for prioritizing. You can do it the way I used to do it. After writing a stream of thoughts, underline the things that are important or make you very emotional or strike you in any other way. Or if you want to do it in a more structured manner, there are things like the Eisenhower matrix that you can use. I'm not going to explain what that is in detail. I'm going to blend in a picture of what it is. This is it. I can talk about it another time. I like to use it sometimes. But yeah, there are many tricks that you can use to utilize writing to help you prioritize. Number 4, immersion. Try writing for 10 minutes straight without lifting the pen. Whenever you are stuck, just keep repeating the last word over and over again until you find other things to write. That is called automatic writing. You are creating a state of flow where you let your brain roam freely and associate and express without stopping it. It is one of my favorite forms of writing when it comes to streams of thoughts. It's full immersion, a deep dive into my thoughts and feelings, pure presence in the moment. It's a sweet way of mindfulness, but automatic writing is not the only way of immersion into writing. Any form of writing can be. Writing poems can open up a profound connection with our inner creativity and self-expression. Writing letters can make us feel really connected to the person we are writing to. And writing fiction lets us immerse into a world of our fantasies of escapism. And while excessive escapism can do more harm than good, some escapism is needed in our lives. A connection to our dreams and fantasies, to our deepest wishes and desires. A warm place to be when the world is cold sometimes. Number 5, distance. In contrast to immersion, sometimes we can use writing to purposefully create distance, to create some space between ourselves and our thoughts, to view situations from an external point of view. Imagine you are having a fight with a person that is very dear to you. Many times we tend to view a situation like that from our own perspective, from our own eyes. Or sometimes we try to take the perspective of the other person to try and understand them. But see how the perspective completely changes when you imagine yourself a fly on the wall, neutral and watching. It can help reduce the intensity of the overwhelming emotions that are felt in a situation like this. And it allows for a more objective analysis. Another thing might be social situations that make you anxious or situations where you felt embarrassed. Write about them from that perspective of the fly. Was it really that bad in the end? Events that hurt us deeply can also benefit from distance. If you set the scene in the past and you write from a third-person perspective, that can signal to our brains that this is over and not in our lives anymore. It doesn't define us. Something terrible might have happened, but it is not happening anymore. We might have been treated badly, but we are not being treated like that anymore. It helps to show yourself the difference between then and now. You can even find distance by turning your struggles into fiction, giving your problems to a completely made-up character that you created. The first book I have written deals with anxiety, something I deeply struggle with. And it really helped me to give this challenge to a fictional character and see them struggle with it, but then eventually overcome it, get out of it. It feels very freeing. This is the book. It is pretty small, but yeah, it helped me through a hard time, I would say. Number 6, control. Writing gives us control. It empowers us to shape our own stories and experiences. It gives us a sense of agency over our lives. In moments of helplessness, writing can leave us active and productive. You don't know what to do, you don't know where to start, you don't know who you want to be. Write it all down. For me specifically, when I have to wait for something that I feel like I have no control about, and it's driving me crazy because I keep overthinking all the possible outcomes, it helps to write about it. Write about the outcomes. Write about the positives and the negatives. It gives me this feeling that I can always do something, and that is express, organize, prioritize whatever is roaming in my brain. But writing not only gives us a sense of productivity, writing can help us reframe our experiences. It allows us to actively interpret events in a more positive light. It allows us to weigh out the pros and cons of things. It allows us to focus on the good if we want to. I'm not saying that good vibes only and we only have to focus on the good, but sometimes it's important to take a step back and tell yourself, okay, what can I think of? What are the positives of this situation? And in writing, you are making sure that you're not forgetting these points anymore. And if you do, you can reread them. In writing, you can lay down points of growth and progress you have made, where you can view them whenever you want to. You can document the way you have conquered challenges and what you have learned from them. When you keep track of your resources in life, for example, what are the things you do when you are going through a hard time? Or who are the people that you most definitely can reach out to? What do you need to be comfortable? What habits do you profit from, and so on? Writing can help you build resilience and gain control in your life. Number 7, solution orientation. Writing, and contrary to just thinking, is most of the time an active and solution-oriented action. By writing it down, you clarify the problem, make it more tangible. You make the identification of the next steps easier. You can actively shift your focus from the problem to its potential solutions. Writing, being an outlet for creative thinking, can stimulate your thought processes for overcoming obstacles. Writing is something you can choose to start and stop. You can choose the direction it's supposed to go in, and you can choose the things you include and leave out. Whereas in thinking, that's not that easy. Thoughts come and go, but the words are in your hands. Now, one question you can ask yourself before you start writing is, what am I writing for? Am I doing automatic writing? Do I want to immerse and express my thoughts and feelings with no restriction? Then ask yourself, am I ready to really dive deep right now? Do I have a time limit prepared? Am I going to reread what I have written, or am I just gonna let it be? I personally like to burn the paper I wrote on sometimes. Like, I would write a stream of thoughts and then I would just watch it go off in flames and smoke, and that was so freeing. Like, it really symbolized to me that, okay, this is over. So ask yourself, what do you want to do? And especially when you are writing something very emotionally charged, especially depressive thoughts, it might be helpful to set yourself a time limit and to not reread these things anymore and not reaffirm them in your head. Positive thoughts, on the other hand, or epiphanies you have while writing, can and often should be reread over and over again. You can ask yourself, do you want to write fiction? Do you want it to escape, or do you want to write it so you can find distance to your own problems and struggles? Am I writing for other people to read it, or am I writing just for myself? If you want to write a letter, you can ask yourself, will the other person read it? Am I gonna send it to them? Am I gonna give it to them in person? Am I going to read it to them, or am I just going to keep it for myself? These are just some examples, and you don't have to have an answer for all the questions, of course. Many answers will come while writing. This is not something you should overthink, but one thing you should always be ready to do is to stop. Question if something is actually helping you, or if it's doing the opposite and making things worse. And when you are someone whose thoughts tend to spiral, or you are in a depressive episode, set a limit to your stream of consciousness. For a period of time, I kept a notebook that I only wrote like streams of thoughts in. I would mostly write when I felt like my thoughts would get too heavy, or when I didn't know where to start. It helped me so much. And in the end, my plan was to burn the whole book, and I just ended up tearing it apart instead. But no matter what, it was meant to symbolize overcoming these thoughts, the impermanence of them. Impermanence? I don't know. And while I might still have thoughts like those sometimes, I feel like nowadays I can deal with them way better. I just have an easier time. And I think this notebook that I kept really, really helped me. I still write a lot, although less than I would like. And nowadays I mainly use my iPad or some throwaway paper. And I've been writing fiction. I mean, I've been writing since I was 7 years old. So yeah, writing is a thing that has always been a part of my life. I have written 2 books so far. The first one, hi, it's editing me, and I just want to say that that statement is untrue. I've written 3 books, technically. With the first one actually being a book that I wrote for my brother's 9th birthday, and it's about a little boy who is playing with his action figures and is like making up a fantasy world, and it's called The Destroyinator. And I feel like I have to do justice to this masterpiece. So 3 books. I talked about it already. It is kind of cringe in my head right now, but because I wrote it 2 years ago and I feel like I kind of grew as a person, and it was also a very personal book. The other book is less personal, but very, very dear to my heart. And it's about putting acceptance and commitment therapy into an entertaining story with a focus on depression. It has helped me to be more connected to the idea of that therapy form and incorporate some of the parts into my life. I will make a video about that soon, so subscribe if you don't want to miss it. But yeah, writing to me is something that has always and will always be a part of my life. If I had nothing left in the world, I still have my words and the love I can put into them. Now, we talked a lot about writing and what it can help us with. On the other hand, bibliotherapy is a huge thing. In therapy, writing is used more systematically. There are methods that therapists use, that therapists tell their patients to use. And I'm not going to talk about them in this video because that would make it too long, but I'm planning on making videos where I'm trying out these methods and I'm sharing my experiences with you, so stay tuned if you're interested. To conclude, writing offers many possibilities and many benefits, but it's not without risk. It's important to check in with yourself and see if what you're doing is good to you or not. If you decide to write, whether it's journaling, poetry, or storytelling, find a writing form that resonates with you. Experiment and try to keep an open heart. Try to switch between short form and long form writing, between poems and fairy tales and stories, dialogues, thought dumps, lists, even recipes, essays, and comments. Don't limit your perspectives. Keep changing up your style and try to write with your hand. Typing is fine, but to get the full benefit and experience, pen and paper is the way to go. It's more mindful, and the things that you write down will often be of deeper meaning. Making writing a daily, weekly, bi-weekly ritual can help you slow down and de-stress. It's a great form of self-reflection, and you will end up feeling more productive. It doesn't even have to be much. 5 minutes, 1 sentence a day, a haiku, anything. I have a little journal with a prompt for each day, and it spans for 3 years. I am really, really bad at keeping it, but I am trying to make it a habit. I'm trying to give myself some time and space, make myself comfortable to write. Try to do that too. Ask yourself, what do you need? Do you want to go to a cafe and write? Do you want to drink some tea? Do you have a scented candle that helps you set the atmosphere? Writing can be such a beautiful way of self-care. And most importantly, don't overthink it. Do I have enough time? Do I have enough energy? Am I inspired enough? It all doesn't matter. Just do it, even if it only ends up being 1 sentence. And remember, writing is a journey of self-discovery and healing. Your words have the power to change your life, and your story matters. Oh my god, I did it! Sit down, get cozy. Oh, fuck me.